20, verse 1. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country, and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, She is my sister. And Abimilech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimeleech in a dream by night, and said to him, Behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimeleech had not come near her. And he said, Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation? Said he not unto me, She is my sister? And even she herself said, He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart, in innocency of my hands have I done this. And God said unto him in a dream, Yea, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart. For I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet. And he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou restore her not, know that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. Therefore Abimeleech rose early in the morning, and called all his servants, and told all these things in their ears, and the men were sore afraid. Then Abimeleech called Abraham, and said unto him, What hast thou done unto us? And what have I offended thee, that thou hast brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not to be done. And Abimeleech said to Abraham, What sawest thou, that thou hast done this thing? And Abraham said, Because I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. And yet indeed she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, This is thy kindness which thou shalt shew unto me. At every place whither we shall come, say of me, He is my brother. And Abimeleech took sheep and oxen and men servants and women servants, and gave them unto Abraham, and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimeleech said, Behold, my land is before thee, dwell where it pleaseth thee. And unto Sarah he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes, unto all that are with thee, and with all other. Thus she was reproved. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimeleech, and his wife, and his maidservants, and they bare children. For the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimeleech, because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Quite a few things that you probably wouldn't necessarily know here. First, the name Abimeleech. Abimeleech is actually not just a name. It tends to be the name title of many of the Philistine kings. In their language, it means something like crown prince, royal one, I am the son of the king, I am the king, something like that. They're not quite sure, but it's in that area. And so he would have been the king of Gerar, which is one of the 5 royal cities of the Philistines. It was located about 25 miles inland from the coast, a little further inland than most of the Philistine cities were. Most of them were right on the coast. And if you were to look on the map today, you would find an Israeli city of Beersheba. And Beersheba would be located very close to where Gerar was. Right now, if you went, you wouldn't see Gerar. All you'd see is a tell, which is a hill. And that was all that was left of it. It would have been built up, destroyed, built up, destroyed, built up, destroyed. And that pile of stuff that was left is called the tell. When they dig through it, they can see all the various layers. It would have been a population there of several hundred to maybe a couple thousand maximum. Wouldn't have been a big place. But the problem that Abraham had, and the reason why he would have asked Sarah to say she was his sister, was the same problem that he had when he went to Egypt. It was very common amongst the kings of those days. You got to remember, these guys were absolute rulers. There was no court, there was nothing. They were the total sum of the law. And if they decided you were a dead person, you were a dead person. There was no appeal. There was no nothing. It was his decision, and he was the guy who made it. And if he didn't like you, that was it. And these guys were quite willing and quite capable, and it was culturally acceptable. If you looked upon a woman and you wanted her, you killed her husband. And then she was now a widow, and then she was free. You could take her. No accounting for the way things are, but that's the way it was. Whereas if she had family, then you were obligated to buy her. And you didn't go killing people. You didn't go killing off the family, the brother, the sister, the mother, the father, anybody. The only guy you could kill easily was the husband and get away with it. So, but Abimilech goes and sends his troops. They go get Sarah. She goes into the harem. And then he has this dream. Now, we know that from things that happen in other sources of information that there was a time there. This wasn't like overnight. There was a time there. And several days, several weeks, we're not really sure. And all of a sudden, one night, Abimilech has a dream. And in the dream, God appears to him and says, "You are a dead man." He says, "What? What am I a dead man for?" And he said, "Because Sarah is somebody's wife." And he says, "But I asked her. I asked him. He said she was his sister. I asked her. She said she was his brother, or he was her brother." And well, God let him know that guess what? Yeah, that relationship might be there, but she's also his wife. And so Abimilech takes that seriously, and he's also told that if he doesn't give her back, him and his whole city, everything he has, is going to die. So he gets up in the morning, he calls all the guys that he has together about him, and everybody is scared stiff. So he sends for Sarah, and there we have some interesting things. We're not really quite sure exactly how this translates, because a lot of this stuff is textually, it depends on what goes before those words, what those words mean. It's a very interesting way of writing language sometimes. And it's like on a computer, you can have contextual menus. And so when you have one screen open and you hit File, certain type drop-down menu happens. But you have another screen open or another option selected, and you hit File, and a totally different context menu comes down. And that's the same thing it is with language. It mentions about her being rebuked. Something about 1,000 pieces of silver and her being rebuked. And we're not sure whether or not the 1,000 pieces of silver was offered to her or to Abraham as an amends, an apology. Sorry we did this. It was innocent. We didn't really know it. Or whether, in fact, what happened was he had given Abraham 1,000 pieces of silver as what's called a bride price, to buy Sarah from the family, and Abraham, as the representative of the family, got the bride price. It would have been his responsibility to share it with some other member of the family. Very common practice in different places around the world today. And basically, what he said was it was to be a covering for her face. In other words, because she had not worn a veil. She had left her beauty uncovered, which as a married woman should have been covered, so that it wasn't seen. That they were going to give her something so that she could buy a very good covering for her face. It was an interesting way of doing it. But it was a rebuke to her. And because she cooperated in this. Then he called Abraham together and said, "Why did you do this?" And Abraham explained to him why he did it. And so they made arrangements. He gave Abraham the opportunity to go settle any place on his whole land that he wanted, and which Abraham did. And as it turned out, a couple of years later, they got together and they made an agreement, pact for mutual support and benefit. And Abraham prayed for him. And it looks like they started to develop a relationship that got past the initial event there with Sarah. But you need to understand when some of these things happen that you got to remember who these kings were and what they could do to you. They could kill you if you looked at them the wrong way.